Well, joining me now is former leader of the Scottish Conservative Party, Baroness Ruth Davidson. Ruth Davidson, thank you so much for joining me. It's an extraordinary situation, isn't it, in British politics, where you have the current Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who's coming under siege now from his own party, from his own ethics standards boss, from all sides, it seems, and at the same time, the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, and his number two are also subject to a police investigation for also breaking lockdown rules.
I think this is, Piers, basically because we were told as a country by people at the top that this was serious, that these rules were serious, that sticking to these rules was serious, that it was a matter of life and death, and that this was a time of national crisis, and as such there was a collective endeavour to stick to the spirit of the rules, to stick to the letter of the rules, and that's what would see us through as a country. And I think people, certainly a large proportion of people, are rightly angry when they see those that set those restrictions up, whether it was the Prime Minister who stood at a lectern and told them they had to stay at home, or whether it was the leader of the opposition who voted it through, looking as if it was one rule for everybody else, but those rules that they set for us didn't apply to them. And that's why people who weren't able to hold the hand of a loved one as they died, weren't able to go to a funeral, weren't able to visit an isolated new mother, won't forget what they gave up and what they sacrificed because they thought they were doing the right thing and because they were told that's what they had to do.
I mean, there are still Conservative politicians who stand by Boris Johnson. I'm about to talk to Peter Bone after I talk to you. He's a long-standing Conservative MP, you know, for many years. What's your message to them? I mean, do you believe that the integrity, not just of the Prime Minister and the government, but of the Conservative Party is now at stake here?
Well, actually, I care more about what this is doing to the country necessarily than the party, although, of course, it's deeply damaging to the party. But for me, particularly at a time of national crisis, you need the leader of the land, the first among equals, to be judged to a higher standard, not a lower one. He needs to set an example. He needs to have moral authority, and that's nothing to do with whoever holds the post of Prime Minister. That's to do with the office of Prime Minister itself. And if people look at an office being traduced in this way, if they look at people who are at the very top going, well, actually, we don't have to stick by the rules, then that does filter down to people. And they go, well, why should I stick by the rules either?
Right.
And I do think that it is damaging to the country and to the institution. I'm a Conservative because I support the institutions of this country, and to see them traduced like this, you know, I find it I'm deeply uneasy about it.
Do you think Boris Johnson will survive this?
I think this is a really interesting week because the Parliament's off for a week. It means everybody's back in their constituencies. They're doing loads of things with constituents around the Jubilee. They're having a lot of people come up and speak to them. They're getting a sense of the depth and the breadth of feeling in a way they might not do when they're in Westminster, you know, 4, 5, 6 days a week. So I think that the trickle that you're seeing in the last couple of days is part of that, and we may see a few more.
Many people, Ruth Davidson, think that if there is a vacancy to be leader of the Conservative Party, you ought to be putting your name forward. You were very popular when you were up there in Scotland. Many people wished you'd come down here and been perhaps Prime Minister when Boris Johnson took the job. Are you interested if there is a vacancy?
No, I'm not interested. I value my mental health and my family life too much. I've got a young son, and I'm not interested in the job, and nor am I qualified to hold it. I'm not an MP, so even if I were, which I'm not, I couldn't put myself forward. But what I do want to see is I want to see somebody in the role who understands what the expectations are of the job, and what it is that they have to do to uphold the standards of public life that we need to expect from our leaders and that we need to demand from our leaders.
Well, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I just find it extraordinary that we have a Prime Minister who actually got a fixed penalty notice from the police for breaking one of his own laws. I mean, I just don't know how any Prime Minister in history that I can remember could or should have survived that moment.
I mean, I respect my colleagues. They've been put in a very difficult position, colleagues on the green benches in Westminster. But what I don't understand is how they can look at the damage that is being done. And if you asked any of them, away from this, do you think it's acceptable for a Prime Minister to break a law that he says? They would say no. And if you ask them, do you think it's acceptable for a Prime Minister to be charged by the police and just carry on as if nothing had happened, or not refer himself to the ministerial code? Or do you, is it acceptable for a Prime Minister to stand up in Parliament and say he's appalled by something that he didn't know anything about, and it turns out that he not only knew about it, he participated in it? I mean, do you think any of these things are acceptable? They would all say no.
Do you think
what I don't understand is why they're currently sitting on their hands.
Do you think he's an honest man, Boris Johnson?
I don't know. I've got no window to see into another man's soul. But I think that when he stood up in Parliament after Allegra Stratton, the only person to have resigned over this, let's not forget, and she resigned not because she attended anything, but because she was caught on camera being unable to answer a question about it because she knew it was wrong, standing up saying he was appalled and that people that he knew nothing about had done things that were wrong and he was going to get to the bottom of it. When he stood up and said that, he knew that he was there. And I think that that act in Parliament was a dishonest act.
I could not agree more. Baroness Davidson, thank you very much. Please come back and be an MP soon.
Thank you. Not a chance.
You know you want to. I'll take that money in a bet. But lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Piers.